No species could survive wearing it. Until a human stepped into the armor. The gleaming research facility orbiting the gas giant Nexus 7 buzzed with activity. For 3 standard cycles, the most brilliant scientific minds from 7 different galactic species had gathered here for one purpose, to unlock the secrets of the armor. Chief Researcher Zaxvor slammed his four-fingered hand against the observation glass. His skin, normally a calm blue, flushed purple with frustration. Another failure, he hissed. That makes 26 attempts today alone. Inside the testing chamber, a Vexari warrior, reptilian, powerful, and considered one of the most physically dominant species in the known galaxy, collapsed to the floor. The ancient armor remained dark and lifeless beside him. His vital signs are stabilizing, reported Assistant Researcher Trill. Her delicate antennae twitched nervously. But like the others, the neural feedback knocked him unconscious. Zaxvor turned away from the glass. The armor was maddening. Discovered in the ruins of a long-dead civilization, it had defied all attempts at activation. Every species had tried, the logical Quantari, the telepathic Illuvians, even the energy-based Merrics who could interface with most technology directly. None could make the armor respond. Tomorrow we try the Granda representative, Zaxvor said, though his voice lacked conviction. After 3 years of failures, even he was losing hope. Little did he know that everything was about to change. Captain Sarah Chen squinted at the readout on the mining vessel prospector. Toby, are you sure about these readings? That's not a standard distress signal. Toby Reynolds, communications officer and the youngest member of the human crew, nodded emphatically. It's definitely a distress call, Captain, but using a frequency I've never seen before. Definitely not human. Aliens, whispered engineer Mira Patel. Though humanity had ventured into space 50 years ago, direct contact with alien civilizations remained rare and regulated. We're way off the charted routes, said First Officer Jackson. Could be a trap. Pirates have been known to fake signals. Captain Chen studied the blinking coordinates. The prospector was a simple mining vessel with a crew of 12, prospecting for rare minerals in this unexplored sector. They weren't equipped for first contact situations. But Chen couldn't ignore a distress call. Rules of space still apply, whether human or alien. Plot a course, but approach with caution. All hands on alert. As the prospector changed direction, James Wilson continued working in the engine room, oblivious to the discovery. At 28, he was neither the youngest nor the oldest crew member, neither the smartest nor the strongest. An average engineer doing his job, fixing the coolant system that had been giving them trouble for weeks. He had no idea he was heading toward destiny. Alarms blared throughout the research facility. Unknown vessel approaching, announced the automated system. Configuration not in database. Zaxvor rushed to the command center, where a holographic display showed a small ship approaching their station. Magnify, he ordered. The image enlarged, revealing a crude vessel by galactic standards, with blocky construction and visible weld lines. Primitive design, observed Security Chief Cracks, his armored exoskeleton clicking as he moved. But they responded to our distress beacon. The one we've been broadcasting for supply ships. What species is that? Asked Trill, studying the ship's markings. Zaxvor zoomed in further, revealing writing on the hull, Prospector, Earth Mining Corporation. Humans, he said, his inner eyelids blinking rapidly in surprise. We've had reports of them expanding into this sector, but never encountered them directly. They're a young spacefaring species, barely a century of interstellar travel. Crax's battle mandibles clicked nervously. Should we consider them a threat? They responded to our distress call, Zaxvor reminded him. And we are a research station, not a military outpost. Besides. He hesitated, then admitted what they all knew, we've tried everything else. Perhaps a new perspective is exactly what we need. The prospector eased alongside the massive alien structure, dwarfed by its sleek, organic curves and strange, pulsing lights. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Prospector," she broadcast. "We received your distress signal. Do you require assistance?" The reply came moments later, translated by their computer into stilted English. "Earth vessel, this is Research Director Zaxvor. We welcome your assistance. Permission to dock granted at Portal 7 Gamma." Chen looked at her nervous crew. "Well, folks, looks like we're making first contact. Jackson, Patel, and Wilson with me. Everyone else, standard protocols, be ready for emergency departure if needed." James Wilson looked up in surprise when his name was called. "Me, Captain? I'm just an engineer." "Exactly," Chen said. "If they need technical help, I want someone who can think practically. Suit up." 20 minutes later, the four humans stood nervously inside an airlock, wearing their environment suits as a precaution. The outer door slid open, revealing a tall, blue-skinned alien with large, multifaceted eyes and four-fingered hands. "I am Zaxvor," the alien said, his mouth not matching the English words they heard through their translators. "Welcome to Research Station Epsilon. We apologize for the distress signal, it was meant for supply vessels, not for rescue." Captain Chen removed her helmet after sensors confirmed breathable atmosphere. "No apology needed. We're happy to make peaceful contact." As diplomatic exchanges continued, James Wilson found himself staring past the alien delegation at the corridor beyond. Something was calling to him, a strange hum just at the edge of perception, like a song he couldn't quite remember. "We would be honored to show you our research," Zaxvor was saying. "Perhaps a fresh perspective could be valuable." Captain Chen agreed, and soon they were following the aliens deeper into the station. James trailed behind, the strange humming growing stronger with each step. It was only when they entered a large laboratory that he understood why. In the center of the room, on a raised platform surrounded by equipment, stood a suit of armor unlike anything he had ever seen. It seemed to be made of some dark metal with flowing lines that defied human manufacturing techniques. Though humanoid in shape, it was clearly designed for a body with different proportions than a human's. "This is the primary focus of our research," explained Zaxvor. "An artifact from a civilization that vanished 20,000 years ago. We believe it contains technology far beyond our understanding, but we have been unable to activate it." While the others listened to the technical details, James found himself drawn to the armor. The humming had become almost unbearable, not in his ears, but somehow inside his mind. "Has anyone tried just touching it?" he asked suddenly, interrupting the technical explanation. The aliens exchanged looks that even humans could interpret as surprise. "Of course," said Trill. "Physical contact has been attempted by representatives of 23 different species. Each attempt resulted in neural feedback that rendered the subject unconscious." James nodded absently, already stepping toward the platform. "Wilson." Captain Chen's voice held a warning. "Stand down." But James could barely hear her over the humming in his mind. He moved forward as if in a trance, reaching out one hand. "Stop him," ordered Zaxvor, but too late. James's fingertips brushed the surface of the armor's chest plate. In that instant, everything changed. The armor, dormant for thousands of years despite the best efforts of the brightest minds in the galaxy, blazed to life. Lines of blue-white energy coursed through the metal, illuminating patterns invisible before. The entire room shook as power surged through ancient systems. James stood frozen, his hands still touching the armor, his eyes wide with shock and wonder as information flooded his mind, images, concepts, languages he couldn't understand yet somehow recognized. Around him, aliens and humans alike stared in disbelief. "Impossible," whispered Zaxvor. "How?" The armor's glow intensified, bathing James in light. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the surge subsided. The armor continued to emit a soft blue pulse, like a heartbeat, but the violent reaction had ended. James slowly removed his hand, stepping back on shaky legs. I heard it calling me, he said, his voice distant. It wanted me to touch it. Captain Chen rushed to his side. Are you hurt? He shook his head. No. I feel different. Like it showed me something, but I can't quite remember what. Zaxvor approached cautiously, his scientific curiosity overcoming his shock. In all our tests, the armor has never responded like this. Not once. What does it mean? Asked First Officer Jackson. The alien scientist studied James with new intensity. It means, he said slowly, that everything we thought we knew about humans may be wrong. He turned to Captain Chen. With your permission, we would like your engineer to assist with further tests. This could be the breakthrough we've been seeking for years. Before Chen could answer, alarms blared throughout the facility. Security Chief Krax burst into the laboratory, his exoskeleton fully extended in combat mode. Director, he shouted. Long-range sensors have detected multiple vessels entering the system. Configuration matches Krothol warships. Zaxvor's skin paled to a light blue. How many? A full battle group, Krax replied grimly. They'll reach us within hours. Who are the Krothol? Captain Chen demanded. A warrior species, Zaxvor explained, fear evident in his voice. They've been searching for this armor for centuries, believing it will make them unstoppable. All eyes turned to James, who still stood near the now active armor. What do we do? Asked Mira Patel. James looked at the armor, feeling its pull stronger than ever. I think, he said slowly, I'm supposed to wear it. This is insane, Captain Chen protested, stepping between James and the armor. We don't know what that thing will do to him. The research facility's warning sirens continued to wail as everyone stared at the glowing armor. We have no choice, Zaxvor insisted. The Krothol will destroy this station and everyone on it to get the armor. They've done it before. James looked at the alien scientist, then back to his captain. I need to try, he said. His voice was steady despite the fear churning in his stomach. It called to me. I think it's meant for me to wear it. Chen's face hardened. That's not a good enough reason to risk your life, Wilson. Security Chief Krax burst into the conversation. Krothol ships have increased speed. Arrival time, 45 minutes. We must evacuate immediately. There's no time to argue, James said, stepping toward the armor. If this thing can help us, we need to know now. Before anyone could stop him, James placed both hands on the chest plate. The armor's glow intensified, the metal plates shifting and reconfiguring themselves with a fluid grace that defied conventional physics. Sections separated, opening like a blossoming flower. It's inviting me in, James whispered. With a deep breath, he stepped forward, turning to let the armor close around him. Metal flowed over his limbs, conforming perfectly to his body despite being designed for an alien form. The fit was impossibly perfect. Only the helmet remained open. James looked through it, seeing strange symbols flashing across the interior surface. How do you feel? Asked Zaxvor, approaching cautiously. Different, James replied. Like there's pressure all over my body, but not uncomfortable. Suddenly, he gasped as the neural interface activated, sending a jolt through his nervous system. Images flooded his mind, stars, planets, battles, faces of beings unlike any species he'd ever seen. Knowledge poured into his consciousness, too much to process at once. Wilson! Chen shouted, rushing forward as James staggered. He raised a hand to stop her, the movement unnaturally smooth and powerful. I'm okay, he said, his voice steady. It's downloading information. The helmet closed around his head, sealing with a soft hiss. For a moment, James stood perfectly still, then straightened to his full height. The armor's dark surface now glowed with lines of blue energy that pulsed like veins. James. Chen asked uncertainly. When he spoke, his voice carried a strange resonance. I can see everything. The station systems, the approaching ships, it's all here. The doors to the laboratory burst open as 3 Krothol warriors charged in, weapons raised. Everyone froze in shock. They had arrived far sooner than expected, having already boarded the station with an advance team. The Krothol were massive, standing nearly 8 feet tall with thick, gray skin covered in bony plates. Their 4 eyes widened at the sight of the activated armor. The mantle, the lead warrior growled through translator devices. Surrender it now. Security Chief Krax moved to defend the others, but he was no match for the Krothol's superior strength. A shot from their energy weapons sent him crashing into a wall. James reacted without thinking. The armor moved with him, no, it moved before him, anticipating his intentions. He crossed the room in a blur of speed, deflecting energy blasts with his armored forearm. The shots bounced harmlessly away, striking walls and equipment. James reached the first warrior and struck with his fist. The blow, enhanced by the armor's strength, sent the massive alien flying backward. The other 2 attacked simultaneously, but James moved with impossible grace, evading and countering. Within seconds, all 3 Krothol lay unconscious on the floor. By the ancestors, whispered Trill. The legends were true. James turned to face them, the helmet's featureless surface revealing nothing of his expression. We need to go, he said. More are coming. Captain Chen recovered first. Back to our ship. Now. No, Zaxvor interjected. Your mining vessel cannot outrun Krothol warships. We must take my research shuttle, it has experimental stealth technology. As they hurried through the corridors of the station, James found himself processing information from the armor systems. It was as if a presence existed alongside his consciousness, guiding him, showing him how to use the suit's capabilities. Who are you? He thought, directing the question inward. The answer came not in words but in concepts and images, an ancient race called the progenitors, creators of the armor, which they called the mantle of responsibility. They had once stood guardian over many worlds before vanishing thousands of years ago. More Krothol ahead, James warned the group, somehow sensing the enemy through the station's walls. This way instead. He led them down a side passage. How did you know? Mira Patel asked. The armor knows things, James replied, struggling to explain. It's showing me. They reached the docking bay where Zaxvor's research shuttle waited. As they boarded, explosions rocked the station. They're destroying everything, Zaxvor said grimly. Standard Krothol procedure, leave no evidence or witnesses. The shuttle's engines hummed to life as Zaxvor took the controls. Hold on, he warned as they detached from the dying station. Through the viewport, they watched Krothol warships surrounding the research facility. The massive vessels bristled with weapons, their hulls covered in ritual scarification that doubled as armor plating. We'll never get past them, First Officer Jackson said. James stepped forward, placing his armored hand on the shuttle's control panel. Maybe we can. The armor pulsed with energy as it interfaced with the shuttle's systems. Immediately, the engines surged with new power, shields strengthened, and stealth systems engaged beyond their designed capabilities. What are you doing? Zaxvor asked in amazement. The armor is enhancing your technology, James explained. Temporary upgrades. The shuttle slipped between the Krothol ships, its enhanced stealth systems rendering it nearly invisible. They held their breath as they passed within meters of a massive warship. Then they were clear, accelerating away from the system. They're not pursuing, Trill reported, checking the sensors. The stealth modifications are working. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, but it was short-lived. James suddenly collapsed to one knee, the armor's glow flickering. Wilson. Chen rushed to his side. Something's wrong, he gasped. The armor, it's showing me something. In his mind, James saw a distant planet with 3 moons. Ancient structures covered its surface, and deep beneath them lay a vault containing technologies beyond imagination, including more armor suits like the one he wore. "There's a planet," he said, his voice strained. "The armor is showing me coordinates. It wants us to go there." "Why?" asked Chen. James looked up, the armor's faceplate sliding open to reveal his pale, sweat-covered face. "Because the Krothul aren't the real threat. Something worse is coming. Something the progenitors built this armor to fight." "What could be worse than the Krothul?" asked Mira. Before James could answer, the shuttle's sensors blared a warning. A massive Krothul command ship had detected them and was moving to intercept. "They found us," Zaxvor announced grimly. The helmet closed over James's face again as he stood. "Then we fight." "Fight?" Jackson exclaimed. "Against that monster ship? We're in a research shuttle." James walked to the front viewport, looking out at the approaching warship. The armor pulsed with power as systems that had lain dormant for millennia continued to activate. "You don't understand," he said, his voice resonating with new confidence. "The armor chose me for a reason. And I think we're about to find out why." The Krothul command ship loomed ahead, its massive hull blocking out the stars. At 10 times the size of their shuttle, it bristled with weapons designed to destroy vessels much larger than theirs. "We can't outrun it," Zaxvor reported, his blue skin pale with fear. "Their tractor beam has locked onto us." Captain Chen turned to James. "Any ideas from your new friend?" James stood motionless, the armor pulsing with energy as it communicated with him through images and sensations rather than words. He nodded slowly. "The armor's weapon systems are coming online," he said. "But I need to get closer to their ship." "Closer?" First Officer Jackson questioned. "That's suicide." "The shuttle has an emergency airlock," Zaxvor suggested. "But what are you planning?" Instead of answering, James moved to the airlock. "Get ready to punch the engines at full power when I give the signal." "Wilson," Chen grabbed his arm. "That's a direct order. Tell us your plan." The helmet retracted, revealing James's face. He looked different somehow, confident, determined, his eyes glowing faintly with the same blue energy that coursed through the armor. "The progenitors built this armor to face threats that could destroy planets," he explained. "The Krothul ship won't be a problem. Trust me, Captain." Before she could respond, James sealed the helmet and stepped into the airlock. The outer door opened, and he was pulled into the vacuum of space. Instead of flailing helplessly, the armor adapted instantly. Thrusters appeared from its back and limbs, allowing James to maneuver toward the enemy ship. Inside the shuttle, everyone watched in awe. The armor created propulsion systems, Trill observed. "It's adapting to his needs." "Or he's adapting to it," Zaxvor added quietly. In space, James flew directly toward the Krothul vessel. The massive ship launched fighters to intercept him, but he moved with impossible speed, dodging their fire. When a blast did hit him, the armor absorbed the energy, glowing brighter. "It's feeding on their weapons," Zaxvor realized, watching the readings. "Converting the energy." James reached the hull of the command ship and placed his hand against the metal surface. The armor pulsed, interfacing with the ship's systems. Alarms blared inside the Krothul vessel as their controls malfunctioned. The tractor beam holding the shuttle released. "Wilson to shuttle," James's voice came through their comms. "Get ready to move." Inside the Krothul ship, chaos erupted. Systems failed, weapons powered down, and lights flickered. The warriors rushed to battle stations, only to find their terminals unresponsive. James pushed himself away from the hull and unleashed the stored energy he had absorbed from their weapons. A blue beam of concentrated power cut across the ship's engines, disabling them without destroying the vessel. "Now," he shouted to the shuttle. "Maximum speed." Zaxvor needed no encouragement. The shuttle's engines flared as they sped away from the crippled command ship. James activated his thrusters and rejoined them, entering through the same airlock. When he removed his helmet, everyone stared at him in shocked silence. "How did you do that?" Mira finally asked. James sank into a seat, suddenly exhausted. "The armor, it's showing me how to use it, but it takes a toll." His hand trembled as he wiped sweat from his forehead. "And I'm getting glimpses of memories, not mine, but from previous wearers." Captain Chen sat beside him. "You said there's something worse than the Crothole coming. What is it?" James closed his eyes, accessing the memories flowing through his mind. The progenitors called them the Void. A species from outside. Not just outside our galaxy, but outside our reality. "That's not possible," Zaxvor protested. "They enter through tears in spacetime," James continued. "The progenitors fought them for centuries before creating the armor, the mantle of responsibility. It was their last defense. And now they're coming back?" Chen asked. James nodded grimly. The armor was detecting early signs. Unusual readings in quantum fields, microscopic tears forming and closing. The first full incursion could happen within years. Trill's antennae twitched nervously. Why would the armor choose a human? "No offense, but your species is one of the youngest in the galaxy." Before James could answer, a sharp pain shot through his head. He gasped, doubling over. "James!" Chen caught him as he slumped forward. "The connection, it's getting stronger," he managed. "The armor is changing me." Zaxvor scanned him with a handheld device. "Your neural patterns are being altered. The integration is progressing faster than I would have thought possible." "Is it dangerous?" Chen demanded. "I don't know," the alien scientist admitted. "This is unprecedented." James straightened, fighting through the pain. "We need to reach that planet. The coordinates are locked in the shuttle's navigation now." Zaxvor checked the system. "This is incredible. These coordinates lead to a system believed to be the progenitor's home world. It's been restricted space for thousands of years, protected by automated defense systems that destroy any ship that approaches. The armor will get us through," James said with certainty. "It's recognized by the defense systems." The shuttle changed course, heading toward the coordinates. For 3 days they traveled, during which James spent most of his time in meditation, learning to control the armor and process the flood of information it provided. He discovered that the progenitors had seeded elements of their DNA throughout promising species in the galaxy, explaining why the humanoid form was so common. Humans, being relatively unchanged by genetic manipulation over millennia, retained more of the original progenitor genetic markers than most species. On the 4th day, they reached the edge of the restricted system. 3 moons orbited a blue-green planet, just as in James's vision. "Warning, defense grid activated," announced the shuttle's computer. "Multiple weapons platforms targeting this vessel. Massive orbital platforms, far more advanced than anything in the known galaxy, turned their weapons toward the tiny shuttle." "James, now would be a good time for your armor to do its thing," Jackson said nervously. James stepped forward, placing his hand on the shuttle's communication array. The armor glowed as it transmitted an ancient authentication code. For several tense moments, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the weapons platforms powered down. "Access granted," came a mechanical voice through the shuttle speakers. "Welcome home, bearer of the mantle." The shuttle descended toward the planet's surface, guided by an automated system. They landed near a massive structure built into the side of a mountain, clearly artificial, yet seeming to grow from the natural rock. "The repository," James said, recognizing it from his visions. "Everything we need is inside." As they prepared to disembark, the shuttle's sensors detected multiple ships entering the system. "The Crothole found us," Zaxvor said in disbelief. "But how?" "The defense grid should have." He was interrupted by the same mechanical voice, warning, defense grid compromised. Unknown virus detected in central systems. Weapons offline. James stared at the approaching fleet in horror. They knew we were coming here. They must have planted a virus in my armor when I connected to their ship. Can you fix it? Chen asked. James shook his head. Not from here. We need to reach the repository's control center. How long until they land? Mira asked. Zaxvor checked the readings. 20 minutes, perhaps less. James looked at the mountain structure. Then we have 20 minutes to find what we came for and reactivate the defenses. Otherwise, we'll be trapped here with the galaxy's most dangerous warriors, and the key to saving everything will fall into their hands. The massive doors of the repository slid open as James approached, responding to the armor signature. Inside was a vast hall with soaring ceilings and technology that looked more like art than machinery. Incredible, breathed Zaxvor, his scientific curiosity momentarily overcoming his fear. These systems appear to be fully functional despite being abandoned for millennia. We don't have time for sightseeing, Captain Chen reminded them. Wilson, where's the control center? James stood still, letting the armor guide him. Images flashed through his mind, schematics of the facility, access routes, security protocols. This way, he said, leading them down a wide corridor. The walls lit up as they passed, responding to the armor's presence. James, Mira asked as they hurried along, are you okay? You look different. She was right. His skin had taken on a subtle luminescence, and his eyes now permanently held the blue glow of the armor's energy. I'm fine, he said, though he wasn't entirely sure that was true. The armor was changing him, reshaping his nervous system to better interface with its systems. The integration is progressing faster than expected. Is it taking you over? Chen asked, concern evident in her voice. James shook his head. No. It's more like we're becoming one entity. The armor needs a consciousness to direct it. They reached a circular chamber at the heart of the facility. In the center stood a raised platform surrounded by holographic displays that activated as they entered. The main control hub, James said, stepping onto the platform. The armor interfaced with the ancient systems, causing the entire chamber to hum with power. Displays filled with data in the progenitor language, which James now found he could understand. The defense grid virus is complex, he reported. I need time to purge it. Time we don't have, Jackson said, checking his handheld scanner. The Crothol ships are beginning their descent. 12 minutes until they land. Zaxvor studied the displays. These readings, there's more armor here, isn't there? James nodded. A vault below us contains several more suits, weapons, and technology beyond anything in the current galaxy. That's what the Crothol are really after. Can you access the vault while working on the defenses? Chen asked. Yes, James replied, his fingers moving across the holographic controls with unnatural speed and precision. The armor is handling most of it. A section of the floor slid open, revealing a platform that rose from below. On it stood 5 additional suits of armor, similar to James's but with subtle variations in design. The progenitors created 6 mantles in total, James explained as he continued working. Each with different specializations. Mine is the command mantle, designed to coordinate the others. The group stared in awe at the ancient weapons. Can anyone else wear them? Mira asked. Only those with sufficient progenitor genetic markers, James replied. Humans have the highest compatibility of any living species. A new alarm sounded. Perimeter breach, announced the facility's AI. Hostile forces detected. They're here early, Jackson said grimly. James made a final adjustment to the controls. Defense grid purge initiated, but it will take 15 minutes to complete. We need to hold them off until then, Chen said, drawing her sidearm. But we're outmatched against Crothol warriors. James looked at the 5 inactive armor suits. Maybe not. He turned to his crewmates. Chen, Jackson, Mira, the armor indicates you all have sufficient genetic compatibility. You could wear the mantles. Are you serious? Jackson asked. It's our only chance, James insisted. Each suit has different abilities. Together, we might hold off the Crotho long enough for the defenses to come online. Chen studied the armor suits. What about the neural integration? You said it's changing you. We don't have time for full integration, James explained. The suits can operate in emergency mode for short periods with minimal neural connection. A distant explosion shook the facility. They're getting closer, Zaxvor warned. After a moment's hesitation, Chen nodded. Let's do it. James directed each of them to a different suit. Chen took the warrior mantle, specialized for combat. Jackson received the guardian mantle, focused on defense and protection. Mira approached the builder mantle, designed for technology manipulation and repair. What about us? Trill asked, indicating herself and Zaxvor. The repository has a secure inner chamber, James told them. You'll be safer there. As the aliens retreated to safety, the humans stepped into their respective suits. Unlike James's gradual integration, they experienced a simplified connection process, the armor forming around them quickly. This feels incredible, Chen said, testing her suit's enhanced strength. The neural connection is minimal, James warned. You won't have access to all functions, but it should be enough. Just as they finished, the chamber's main doors exploded inward. Crotho warriors stormed through, led by a massive figure in ceremonial armor, their high commander. The mantles will be ours, the commander growled through his translator. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. James stepped forward, his armor glowing brightly. You don't understand what you're dealing with. The mantles weren't built to fight other species, they were built to protect all life from the void. Ancient myths, the commander dismissed. We will use the power of the progenitors to rule the galaxy. Then you leave us no choice, James replied. The 4 armored humans moved with coordinated precision. Chen charged forward, her warrior mantle enhancing her speed and strength to match the Crotho. Jackson deployed energy shields from his guardian mantle, protecting them from enemy fire. Myra's builder mantle allowed her to hijack the Crotho weapons, causing them to malfunction. James connected to all 3 suits, coordinating their movements and sharing tactical information. Together, they pushed the Crotho back. But the High Commander was a formidable opponent. He activated an ancient device that disrupted the armor's energy fields. Your progenitor toys are impressive, he snarled. But we have spent centuries studying their weaknesses. James felt his connection to the others weakening. The commander pressed his advantage, driving them apart. 8 minutes until defense grid restoration, announced the facility AI. They wouldn't last that long. The Crotho were adapting to their tactics, and more warriors poured in continuously. James made a decision. Fall back to the platform, he ordered the others. I'll buy us time. James, no. Chen protested. But he was already moving, diving deeper into his connection with the command mantle. The armor responded, unlocking capabilities that had remained dormant until now. Energy coursed through him as he activated the mantle's ultimate function, Unity Field. A sphere of blue energy expanded outward from his armor, slowing the Crotho to a near standstill as it altered the flow of time within its radius. Inside the field, James moved normally while everyone else moved in slow motion. He methodically disarmed and disabled the warriors, even the mighty commander. When the field collapsed, James fell to his knees, exhausted. The other humans rushed to his side as the Crotho lay defeated around them. Defense grid restored, announced the AI. Hostile vessels targeted and neutralized. It was over. They had won. In the days that followed, they discovered the full truth. The repository contained not just weapons but knowledge, the entire history of the progenitors and their long war against the void. The armor suits were merely tools to help prepare the current species of the galaxy for the coming invasion. The Krothul High Commander, now their prisoner, finally understood the truth when James showed him the evidence. "We were deceived," he admitted. "The legends we followed were corrupted versions of the truth." 1 month later, representatives from major galactic species gathered at the repository. James, now fully integrated with the command mantle, addressed them. "The void will return within our lifetimes," he told the assembly. "But we have been given the tools to fight them. Humans and Krothul, Quantari and Illuvians, all of us must stand together, as the progenitors intended." As he spoke, Chen, Jackson, and Mira stood beside him in their armor, now permanent bearers of the mantle. Others would join them, beings from across the galaxy with sufficient genetic compatibility to wear additional suits being manufactured using the builder mantle specifications. The progenitors didn't disappear, James concluded. They became us, spread throughout the galaxy in the DNA of countless species. They gave us the stars, and now they've given us the means to protect them. That night, James stood alone on the repository's observation deck, looking up at the stars. The armor was now permanently bonded to him, its consciousness merged with his own. He was both James Wilson and something more, the first guardian of a new age. In the darkness of space, far beyond the edge of the galaxy, something stirred. The void had sensed the activation of the mantles. It knew its ancient enemies had returned. And the final battle for reality itself would soon begin.